broccoli, right? You cut it. So this is cut broccoli, one piece of it, right?
Yeah.
And you have these small things on the broccoli which make broccoli, right?
Yeah.
When you are eating it, so these small, every dot that I made here is one ovary, which is half ripened. Before it, the same one piece was florets. They were all multiple florets, which got cross-pollinated and became the broccoli. So when you eat, it's not like this one is one ovary. There are thousands, hundreds and thousands in this. You understand now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the right hand side, you made the
Before. This is before.
But what are they?
Florets. The small florets when they were flourishing, the flowers. So each floret contains anthers and also contain a small ovary. So each floret is a bisexual floret, bisexual flower.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
each one tiny little strand in the broccoli is a floret, and then inside that there is like
a very tiny
bajillion
anther.
ovaries.
Yes, a very tiny 6 anthers are there, and one superior ovary is there in every floret.
Wow.
Yeah, which after pollination gets shed off, and only the ovary is there that you eat. That's so cool, right?
Yeah,
But it
that's
never tastes
many of ovaries. And
yeah.
thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
So
I'm sorry. Yeah, you were saying.
But food.
So voice is lagging.
Before
Yeah,
go,
your voice is lagging.
so I'll dismiss the saying there, food for thought. Yeah, I was saying just a food for just 1 second. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Is my voice better now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you hear, sir?
No, sir, you're not at all audible now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a food for thought before we go. Flowers are nothing but reproductive parts of a plant, right?
Yes.
And so when we greet someone, we are actually greeting them with plant's reproductive parts. When we eat a fruit, we are eating a ripened reproductive organ of a plant.
Sir,
Right?
that's very, very weird.
But that's biology. Yes. Okay. So I hope it changed the perspective of you look at flowers. When you go and smell a flower, you're actually smelling the reproductive parts of the plant. Right? Chalo,
Yeah.
I'll see you in the next class. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Hey, Ellen, how are you? Am I audible, Ellen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing fine.
Fine. Okay, cool. So will you just give me a couple of minutes break?
Yes, sir.
I just extended a little bit. I'm so sorry for that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just the 2 minutes and I'll be back and we'll start. Okay. If you have any doubts, keep them ready. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hey, Alan, how are you? Back. You there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have any doubts to begin with? Let me.
Not as of yet, sir.
Okay, so should we continue with our as we planned? We planned on doing biotechnology applications, right? Today, as a revision.
Yes, sir. I wasn't there in last class, so I'm not sure about that.
Oh, you missed the last class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So actually we did biotechnology and we decided just the fundamentals, the principles and the processes. So in this class, we can go to the application part, or we did.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we'll follow the same thing. We'll first start with, let me share the screen with you. So in the revision mode, we'll start with biotechnological applications. Okay. And then we'll go to do some questions. Okay. Is that okay, Helen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So talking about biotechnological applications, so we studied, you were there when we did processes and principles, right? You were there.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, correct. So talking about applications, we know that biotechnology has wide variety of applications in almost every field of science now, but in your NCERT, in your textbook, you majorly focus on two things. One is agriculture and second is medicine, right? Apart from that, we also use biotechnology for sewage treatment, even energy production, where the idea is to make fuel from algae, and in IVF, right? We discussed, I think, IVF before also when we talked about genetic engineering and process, bioengineering process, right?
Yes, sir.
Bioprocessing engineering, sorry. So here we will be majorly talking about using biotechnology for agriculture purposes. Now, let's go in a discussive mode like we do. So first question again, with which we started the chapter also. And if you miss the chapter, it's a good revision for you. So why do you think we all of a sudden decided to do agriculture using the help of biotechnology?
It's just, I think we discussed all these things and then we
Mhm.
do the questions for this one already, biotechnology applications.
Oh, did we do questions for
I
this
think
one?
so. Yes, sir, because I remember doing for vitamin A, golden rice and all that.
Okay, great. So you were in the last class then. I thought you missed the last class. That's why I'm just repeating for you. Okay, then I think biotechnology is done. So we can go
Yes, sir.
we can go to the reproduction unit because that is what we left for the end, and that's also have heavy weightage, right?
Yes, sir.
Shall we go to would you like to start with humans or plants?
Plants.
Oh, I think we don't have plants here in 12th. So we have reproduction in organisms in general, right? Where we have sexual and asexual reproduction and all. The first introductory chapter, meiosis, mitosis, and everything.
Yes, sir, but it is there for CBSE, right?
Yes, right. So this chapter 1, right? Reproduction in organisms in general.
Yes, sir.
Cool. So let's start with the basic, simple reproduction in organisms. Okay, now what is reproduction? Alan, what do you think? Do we mean by a reproduction?
So after combining your parents' genes and producing a new offspring.
Yeah, but that is at the genetic level, right? We now know about genes and recombination, etc. Without knowing anything about gene, what do you think is the process of reproduction is?
It is simply the production of new offspring.
From the parents, correct? And is there any rule for those offsprings? We only call something reproduction when the offsprings in their adult form, if not necessarily in their juvenile form, but in their adult form, they should look like their parents. right? Morphologically. Then we will call that reproduction has happened. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
For example, a frog lay eggs, right? You must be knowing about frog eggs. But when those eggs hatch, what comes out of the eggs look nothing like a frog. They are called tadpoles. Do tadpoles look like frogs?
No, sir.
No, right? So, but they develop over later on to become like their adult parents. When they become adult, they look like their parents, which means they look like frogs because they are frogs themselves. So that is called reproduction. So it's simply making copies or producing offsprings which look similar to the parents in their adult form. Okay? Which are similar to the adult parent. Now, if there are two kinds of development associated. So post reproduction, what happens is development. When babies are born or when eggs are laid, in that whole process, that new organism, the new offspring is developing, right? So there is two kinds of development. Okay, Alan. One is called direct development. For example, this happens in case of humans. So human babies, right after they are born, they look like humans, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
We can look at them and say that these are human babies. They don't undergo series of changes in their appearance. But a frog offspring does not look like a frog when it starts the life. For example, a butterfly's offspring. What is a butterfly's? So butterflies lay eggs. What comes out of the eggs?
A cocoon. Like,
No, cocoon is when it
oh, yeah,
goes.
sorry.
Yeah.
It goes. Okay, then a pupa comes out.
A caterpillar comes out.
Oh, sorry, a
from that,
caterpillar.
right? A larvae comes out.
Yes, sir.
And a larvae, like it wriggles like a worm, right? It looks nothing like a butterfly. Does it look like a butterfly at all?
No.
No, it looks entirely different. Then that larva just keeps eating and eating and eating and eating. And after eating a lot, it grows in size and then makes a cocoon around itself and become a pupa, right? Inside that cocoon, the development happens and then it breaks the cocoon and what comes out is a butterfly, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you can see that this kind of development has series of different looking stages, different morphological stages. That kind of a development is called indirect development. It happens in insects and it's called metamorphosis. Morph means outer appearance. Meta means on a larger scale. So metamorphosis. So changing the appearance on a very large scale, global changes. So a caterpillar which looks like a worm becomes a butterfly which has wings and everything to fly. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. Now, talking about reproduction a little more, I think, remember studying about life processes in your junior classes?
Yes, sir.
So is reproduction a life process?
I believe it is, right?
Yes, it is a life process because it's carried out by living systems. But is reproduction a characteristic property of life? An essential property of life?
Yeah.
So it's not a characteristic property of life because, so now this is the point where you have to understand that something is called a characteristic property of life only when without it, life will not be able to exist, like continue. So you might think that if organisms don't reproduce, there'll be no life to continue, right? Which is true. But if an organism does not reproduces, will the organism die?
No.
No, right? So for that matter, humans, until they reach an age and get married and then they reproduce, before that also it's living, right? Cats, dogs, all are cattle, everything. Before they reproduce, they are living, correct? They are alive. And if a human decides never to procreate and never to give rise to babies, still it will continue to live till the rest of its life, correct? So it is not a process that governs or dictates the existence of the organism. But respiration is a characteristic property. If you stop respiring, you will die, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So there's a difference between something being a life process and something being a characteristic property of life. So life process is any process that can be done by living systems. For example, growth. So living systems grow, right? But if a system does not grow, will it stop living? No, right? Because humans after an age stop growing. Plants continue to grow for the rest of their life. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So we broadly segregate reproduction into two categories. Would you like to take on from here what you understand by asexual and sexual reproduction?
Yes, sir. Asexual, as per the name, it is from one parent. So it may be either from the gametes or it could be also from division, that's cell division, where sexual reproduction is from two parents and it is formed due to the formation of gametes from both the parents.
Yeah, but you said that asexual by its name says one parent.
No, by asexual, like I mean like the opposite of sexual reproduction.
Asexual means no sex. Afforestation is opposite of forestation. So like that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, true. So asexual simply means that there are no sex cells involved, which means there are no gametes involved in the process. Now, most of the time, it is a single parent, okay? And that parent may or may not form gametes. It is possible that a parent, a single body, is forming gametes, but still undergoing asexual reproduction. Remember that. So it's possible, it happens, okay? When will sexual reproduction happen? Only when two gametes are fusing together. So the fusion of gametes is the term that you have to write in sexual reproduction and does not have to write in asexual. So you say that in asexual, one thing which is 100% sure is that there is no fusion of gametes. There may or may not be formation of gamete. Gametes can form, but they should not fuse. If they fuse together, it is a sexual reproduction. If they don't fuse, an organism is reproducing by some other method without fusing gametes, it is asexual. Is it clear, Alan?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So in sexual reproduction, NCERT, like normal textbook, says that two parents are involved. But let me tell you, two sexes has to be involved. And sometimes, you know that both sexes can be present in the same parent.
Yes, sir. Like bisexual flowers.
Like hermaphrodites, right? We
Yes,
talk
sir.
about animals.
Okay, animals, yeah.
Yeah. And they have both ovaries and testes in the same body. So only one organism is there, one parent is there, but both the sexes are present. They will produce gametes, and the gametes will undergo self-fertilization. And it will also be called a sexual reproduction, just from one parent. So just keep in mind that instead of remembering that two parents or one parent, just remember two sexes or one sex, fusion of gametes, no fusion of gametes in asexual. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So some examples of hermaphrodites are earthworms, and then we also discussed meiosis and mitosis. Any idea what is meiosis and what is mitosis?
Yes, sir. Wait, like I'm not sure which is the one, but one of them is both of them are sexual divisions. One is reduction, and another one is the same. Like mitosis reduces from 2n to n, I believe. Also meiosis. Okay, so mitosis is like from the division of gametes from 2n to n, whereas meiosis is just combination of gametes.
No. So you are a little confused here. So Both are ways of cell division. First of all, it has nothing to do with just sexual or asexual. Okay. Mitosis is a normal cell division process. It happens in every organism, from a bacteria which divides through fission to a human being. Okay, mitosis is simply a cell dividing to form two daughter cells. Is it clear? So from one mother cell, you make two daughter cells. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
That's mitosis. Mitosis is happening everywhere in our body, every time. When there is a repair mechanism, we have a wound and an injury, and there's a healing for that wound. For normal growth, when a baby grows, so a very small baby, just a few inches long baby grows into a 5 foot long human, 6 foot long human. So all that constitutes of mitosis, cell growth, cell division and growth. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Meiosis is a special kind of cell division which only happens, write down, to produce gametes. That is what you have to remember. Meiosis only happens to produce gametes. Make sense? In nature. Okay. So meiosis only. Yeah.
Yes, sir, but it's always reductional, right? Like it reduces some.
Yes, it's always reductional. Meiosis is called reductional division because a normal animal body is either diploid, mostly diploid, which means we have two sets of genes, one coming
Yes,
from
sir.
the mother and one coming from the father.
Father.
But when we have to make gametes, we cannot set two sets in the gamete. We have to just send one set. So we take them differently, separate them, put one set in the mother, one set in another gamete and one set in another gamete. Okay. So our gametes have half the number of chromosomes that our normal cells of the body have. So human body, every cell of the human body has 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. But the sperms and the ovum in male and females respectively only have 23 chromosomes. Okay, not 46. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And those gametes, sperms and ova, are produced through meiosis, not through mitosis. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I have written here. Mitosis happens in somatic cells. So all the cells of our body which makes our organs, hands, legs, eyes, everything are called somatic cells. And gametes are called sex cells. So meiosis happens only in gametes or sex cells. Mitosis happens in all the other somatic cells, everywhere in our body for repair, growth, and development. And meiosis happens for formation of gametes. And that process is called gametogenesis. Okay. And the organ in which meiosis happens are called gonads. So in males, gonads are called testes, male gonads. Female gonads are called ovaries. They are the primary sexual organs as well. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now you talked about reduction. Now look at these two flow charts and look for a minute, analyze, and tell me, what do you see? What do you understand?
So for mitosis, the mother cell first undergoes DNA replication to form 4N, and then it reduces to 2N. So at the end, basically the same. So we get 2N at the same way. Whereas for meiosis,
And also from one mother cell, you get
two daughter cells.
two daughter cells. Now talk about meiosis.
So for meiosis, it undergoes reduction directly from the beginning itself. So from 1 to N, we have two haploid cells, and then it undergoes replication to form 4 haploid cells. So from one mother cell, from one diploid cell, we get 4 haploid cells.
Yes. So you can see that there are two cycles of division in that one meiosis cycle actually. if you look carefully,
Oh,
it is
yeah,
called,
that, yes, sir.
yeah, that's called M1 and M2.
Yes,
Right?
sir. Yes, sir.
M1 is reductional in nature. You can see that from 2N, it became N and N. So no DNA replication was involved. It's reductional. But M2, where you can see that from each N. So if you just pay attention to this part, from N, there are 2 cells forming. Isn't it just like this, the
Yes, sir. Just
mitosis
like,
only?
yes, sir.
So that's why M2 is called mitosis-like. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the second cycle, which is M2, is not reductional. Only the first is reductional. So overall, meiosis is reductional. Okay.
It's of like primary life steps of meiosis, like prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis.
Mhm.
Isn't it the same for both M1 and M2?
Yes, it is same for both M1 and M2. The sequence is same, but just remember that only in M2 there will be DNA replication, not in M1. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Perfect. And M2 is just like mitosis. Okay, perfect. Now, having talked about the basics, let's come to asexual mode of reproduction. So we will a diverse variety of organisms on the planet reproduce asexually, starting with the most simple form of life, which is bacteria, to hydra, multicellular life like hydra, fungi, etc. You will see that there is a lots of different kind of asexual reproduction. So the first is called binary fission that happens in bacteria and amoeba. You know about binary fission quickly?
Yes, sir. It's direct cell division.
Mm-hmm.
So in
Just,
binary division,
mm-hmm,
so in binary division, we get one parent divides into 2 daughter cells
mm-hmm.
directly, and there's no formation of gametes here.
No, there's no gametes. So gametes themselves are unicellular. So only a multicellular organism can form gametes. Okay. Here what is happening is one bacteria, like you said, just divides like a normal cell division, replicates the DNA, divides just like mitosis, separates and then grow back to the size. Then again divides, separates and grow back to the size. Okay. That's called
Yes,
binary
sir.
fission. So just remember the names because these are asked in the entrance as fact-based question. This is A is called chlamydomonas. How chlamydomonas reproduce is that inside one big chlamydomonas, you will see multiple small chlamydomonas forming because of internal division, and they will be called zoospores. So ultimately, the bigger chlamydomonas membrane will burst and all these small will come out. Then they will grow, and within each, there will be multiple zoospores forming. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So for chlamydomonas, it is zoospores. This is fungi. Okay, they reproduce through conidia. So this is actually a penicillium. Example is penicillium. The same fungi which releases penicillin. Okay. So penicillium reproduces through structures called conidia. Hydra reproduces through bud formation. You can see this bud. This bud will keep getting bigger and bigger, and once it is capable of existing independently in the nature, this bud will detach from the main parent's body and will start living as a independent hydra. Okay. And other is sponge. So this is a sponge, a porifera. Porifera reproduces through these structures called gemmules, which you see here. These spore-like, round seed-like structures, they are called gemmules. So one sponge or one porifera forms multiple gemmules, and these gemmules come out to become multiple sponges. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Whereas the counterpart in plant kingdom, if you see, you know how potato is actually a stem, right? You know that? Potato, the thing that is eaten, the structure is a stem. It is a modified stem which functions for storage of food. But remember, sweet potato is a root. Okay, potato is a stem, sweet potato is a root. Radish, turnip, carrots, they're all roots. Okay, that we eat. So potato is a stem. Is it clear, Ellen?
Yes, sir.
And potato grows through these germinating eye buds. If you have seen a very old potato in your own house, you will see that potatoes have these greenish, yellowish buds growing on them. They are called eye buds of potato. So when potato reaches that stage, you cut the potato in 2 or 4 pieces and put it in soil, a new plant will grow. Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's called asexual method of plant propagation, known as vegetative propagation. So in angiosperms, vegetative propagation is a asexual mode. And vegetative propagation simply means any part of the plant apart from the sexual parts, which is flowers. Okay, any other part. So if the plant is not growing through seeds, then any other part it is growing through or developing through is called asexual reproduction and comes under the vegetative propagation part. So eyes of potato. In ginger, you will see that if you keep ginger for very long, they will start forming these root-like structures called rhizomes. So then you again cut the ginger and put this rhizome in the soil. The rhizome will grow into a new ginger plant. So potato through eye buds, ginger through rhizomes. This is called agave. Agave forms these bulbil. So this whole structure is a bulb-like structure called bulbil of agave. So agave is a plant which grows through bulbils. Bryophyllum is a very famous example. At the notch of the leaf, you will form small buds. They are called adventitious buds. Now remember the term adventitious. We use the word adventitious for any part of the plant which is supposed to be somewhere else, but it develops somewhere else and serves the purpose there. For example, buds should not normally form on the leaf, right? Have you seen any other plant's leaf having a bud on it?
No, sir.
All right. So if you buds are mostly found around in the branches or something, right? At the leaf notch, not on the leaf, correct? So, sorry, not leaf notch, at the base of the leaf, right? You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Plant, and this is a leaf. So you will find bud developing here, right?
Yes, sir.
But not on the leaf. But it is, in case of bryophyllum, it develops on the leaves. Now, when the leaf falls on the ground, all these buds develop into new bryophyllum. So that is how it develops. No seed involved. So
Yes,
again,
sir.
it is a vegetative propagation, asexual mode. Or in case of water hyacinth, which is also known as Bengal terror, it is an aquatic plant. One water hyacinth shoots an offset, which is this part, which you see connecting part. And from there, a new water hyacinth plant develops. Then it again shoots an offset, another plant. So all of them are connected. So they reproduce through offset. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, now quickly going to some modes. Binary fission is clear. Can you tell me what is fragmentation, Alan? It is another mode of
Yes, sir.
asexual
So
reproduction.
fragmentation is when the parent divides it into two parts.
Mhm.
So it could be due to either an sudden tumor or growth, such as in a I believe it was a hydra.
Mhm.
And then after the fragments divide, after the parent divides into fragments, the fragments grow into the parent size and become individual offsprings. So one parent gives rise to two offsprings, and it goes so on like that.
Okay, and so how does this division happens? How does this breaking down takes place?
Yes, sir. So in one of the organisms, it begins due to the a sudden increase in cell division in one side. It happens sudden increase in cell division, and that tumor grows in size and it forms a I think a bridge and then it divides that.
So in fragmentation, the plant, the parent cannot, as the term says, it's fragmentation. There is no tumor. Tumor is there in budding. Okay. As it says,
Okay.
yeah, as it says, fragment. What does fragment means? Pieces.
Pieces, yeah.
Fragmentation depends on external factor. Anything which can externally cut the parent or the organism into two or more parts. So it is not a natural way to reproduce for many organisms, but they have developed this tendency because these organisms always are under the threat of getting broken down by other organisms or cut down by other organisms. So they depend on external cutting unless and until you cut a hydra. So remember, I also told you hydra is also an example of budding. So hydra shows budding, right?
Yes, sir.
Hydra also shows fragmentation. So hydra can only show fragmentation if you cut the hydra.
Okay, yes, sir.
If you don't cut the hydra, hydra is not going to cut itself and show fragmentation. Hydra under normal conditions without any threat or cutting will only show budding.
Yes, sir, budding.
Does it make sense to you?
Yes,
That's
sir.
where I was asking. The difference is for fragmentation, the organism have to depend on external factors which can break it down into pieces. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what is regeneration then? Again, hydra is an example of regeneration.
Yes, sir. So when it's the same, it's almost similar to fragmentation. So when
then why do we study it separately? Why can't I say that fragmentation or regeneration? There must be some difference, right?
I think fragmentation happens in equal proportions and regeneration does not. Is it like that? I'm not sure, to be honest.
Come again.
No, I think like a fragmentation happens in equal proportions. Like the two fragments are equal in proportion. For regeneration, it's not equal in proportions. The pieces fragments.
Not really. Okay. Allow me. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So regeneration, as the word says, to generate again, right?
Yes, sir.
Regeneration is not a true mode of reproduction. Write it down as a sentence. It is an ability of an organism. It is not a true mode of fragmentation. Okay. So humans also have very limited ability to regenerate certain body parts. For example, liver, right?
Yes,
our liver can regenerate, liver tissues can regenerate, our hair tissues can regenerate, our nail tissues can regenerate, right? Our skin can regenerate to some extent, but our bones can't, right? Other organs can't, brain can't. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Our fingers can't, limbs can't. So it is the ability of an organism to grow back the lost body parts. Sometimes it works as a mode of reproduction for some organisms like hydra, where when you cut it, then instead of growing the lost body part, they just grow the whole organism back. So they have very high ability to reproduce, regenerate. But again, there is a concept in regeneration which is called minimum cells required. Let's say I take a planaria, okay? This is a planaria. I cut it into two pieces. Both the pieces will become new organisms. So from one, I got two. So you can say, will I call it fragmentation or regeneration?
Fragmentation, right?
Fragmentation, right?
Yes, sir.
I keep cutting it. After one point of time, there will come a stage that the smallest part will not be able to form the full organism because it is too less number of cells to make the whole organism. That's called minimum cells which are required to regenerate the whole organism back. Okay.
Yes,
is
sir.
it clear?
Yes,
But
sir.
organisms that show fragmentation purely does not seems to have this minimum cell limit. If I take a hydra, if I take 10 hydra, put them in a mixer grinder and make a juice out of it. Okay. And then I put them through a sieve, I filter, and small droplets I keep again on media. Okay, so this is the pieces of hydra. Okay, each piece will become a new hydra again. Amazing, right?
Yes, sir. Then what's the difference between like regeneration and fragmentation hydra itself?
So those organisms which show regeneration, so hydra is an exception because it shows both, it can regenerate, but it also has fragmentation as a mode. So in fragmentation, any fragment can regenerate to form the new organism. But regeneration does not always give rise to new organism. It has a minimum cell limit. In hydra, it does not, this rule is not followed, but let's say in organism or earthworm. So we know that earthworm also regenerates, right?
Yes, sir.
Earthworm does not show fragmentation. It only shows regeneration property. Now what happens? Why it can regenerate its lost body part? Because it is more susceptible to attacks from birds. So what happens? Earthworm goes into the soil. Bird pecks from this part in the beak and tries to push it. So it gets broken from here, right?
Yes, sir.
Now there are two segments. One is this smaller segment, which is in the bird's mouth, and then is the bigger segment, which stays in the soil. Now you will see that this bigger segment can regenerate back the lost segment, okay? But if I keep this smaller segment, it won't be able to regenerate this bigger segment. Do you understand? This will die.
Yes, sir. Okay.
So that's regeneration, okay? Minimum cell. So you need a minimum length to regenerate the lost body parts. Make sense?
Yes, sir. But then how would we call the process of reproduction?
It is not.
That's
what I'm saying.
Not. Okay, it's not.
It's not. That's what I'm saying, that regeneration is not a true mode of reproduction for organisms that show this ability.
Okay.
Organisms, for example, human also show regeneration ability in our nails, localized areas, but we can't use it as a mode of reproduction. So regeneration is just an ability, not a true mode of reproduction. That is what I'm saying. But fragmentation is a true mode of reproduction when it is shown by organisms. Make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, budding you already know, right?
Yes, sir.
Hydra and show budding. Vegetative propagation, I just defined it, described it to you.
Yes, sir.
So these are the asexual mode of reproduction. In vegetative propagation, just remember that there are two modes, natural and artificial. Natural is what happens naturally in the nature, and artificial is what we have for our benefit, we started doing with plants, okay? So natural means if they are propagating through roots, they are called tubers. Like these roots are called tubers in potato, or runners in grasses. Through stems, they are called runner stems. Through leaves, when it happens in bryophyllum, there are new buds present at the notch of the leaves, or through bulbs. Basically same thing. This whole image was about natural vegetative propagation happening, right? Naturally. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now we can also do it artificially. Artificial vegetative propagation is this, where the four processes that you have to study: cutting, layering, grafting being the main, and then the fourth one is tissue culture. Okay. So you know cutting, we do it for many plants to make different variety of plants or different hybrids of plants. So in cutting, you cut stem or leaf of one plant and then put it in the soil and it grows. Like in case of rose, you can do that. You can cut a branch of rose and put it in the soil. It grows from that branch. That's called cutting method. Okay. Grafting is just one step ahead of cutting. You cut from one plant, the shoot part, and graft it on another plant's root part or stem. Okay. So I cut a branch from plant A and grafted that branch on plant B's stem. Okay. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
So for this, some things have to be taken into consideration. One is the diameter of both the plants should be similar, right? Otherwise there will be a problem.
Yes, sir.
If you cut a wider plant and try to put it on a narrower stem, it won't work, right? The opposite also will not work.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's grafting, just like tissue grafting. Third is called layering. Layering is simple. We do it in plants which have low branches. So you pick one branch, bring it to the ground and bury it inside the soil. So that one branch which is buried inside later on starts developing new roots. Now this time these will be called adventitious roots, because these roots should not be here. But just because you put that branch inside the soil, when this branch is put inside the soil, it is still attached to the plant. So it is not cutting. That's why it's called layering. Okay. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then they will produce new roots called adventitious roots, and a new plant will grow from that layering. So we're just making a layer. We are just making a layer of a branch inside the soil. Okay. Now, would you like to tell something about tissue culture? Do you know anything about tissue culture, Alan? In plants, let's talk about just plants, not animals.
So for tissue culture, we usually do it for rare species that are endangered, or we need to make more copies of. So we take the apical tip of it, which has the capacity to divide actively.
And why is that? And why is that?
Because it's a meristematic tissue.
Yes. And in class 11th, you have studied what is a meristematic tissue, right?
Yes, sir, but I don't actually remember it all that well.
Okay, so meristematic tissue is the tissue that have a active dividing capability. So I told you that plants continue to grow forever, for their whole life, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but not all the parts of plant continue to grow. There are some special tissues present at the tip of the plant or at the root of the plant or in the stem. They are, if it is present at the tip of the plant shoot, it is called shoot apical meristem. If it is present in the root, it is called root apical meristem. And if it is present in the trunk, because trunks also become wider and wider as the plant grows, right? When the plant becomes tree, the trunk also gets wider, correct? So plant is not just growing in length, it is also growing in width. Those are called lateral meristems. So meristematic tissues are the tissues which can actively divide. Once they divide, they become non-meristematic tissues, or called parenchymal tissues, and they lose the capability to divide. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That process is called differentiation. They differentiate into something and then stay that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So asexual reproduction is clear. Sexual reproduction in plants happen through their sexual organs called flowers. Flowers are nothing but modified leaf. Okay. If this question comes that what is the origin of a flower, the origin of the flower is a leaf. And before the plants that produce flowers, what are they called?
Sorry, sir. I didn't get your question.
The plants that have the ability to produce flowers, what are they called? Can all plants make flowers?
No, sir.
No, right? Clearly. Yes. So what are the plants which can make flowers called?
Angiosperms, right?
Angiosperms. Okay. Plants that only make seeds but not fruit or flower, what are they called?
Gymnosperms.
Gymnosperms. And then plants that do not make any seeds or things are called pteridophytes and bryophytes, right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So what is a flower? Can you explain this image?
So a flower is a modified shoot, as you said. I mean, sorry, a modified leaf. And then
shoot, you're right. If leaf is also a shoot, so no problem.
Okay, so and then a flower consists of many parts. So we have the reproductive parts, like such as for an anther and male, and stigma style over in female, which is collectively called the pestle. So when a flower contains both anther and a pestle, we call it a bisexual flower. So an anther consists of a stamen consists of an anther and filament. The anther is the part of The anther is the part which produces pollen grains, and
Mhm.
these pollen grains are the male gametes. So they go to the stigma of the female flower.
Mhm.
They produce a pollen tube which goes to the style and finally to the ovary, and then gets fertilized with the ovule of the female flower, the female part, and then it forms a embryo, a zygote, and then it forms a seed followed by a fruit. So these are the parts of a flower.
Perfect. And if I ask you, what part of the flower makes the future seeds of the fruit?
Which part of the flower?
Flower makes the seeds in future. Which part of the flower is the future seed?
It's a ovary.
No, it's ovules.
Ovule,
Oh,
ovule. Okay,
yeah.
okay, ovule. Yes.
Ovary is the future fruit.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
And
sir.
also remember the concept of a true fruit and a false fruit. Remember that?
Yes, sir, it's apomixis and polyandrony, right?
No. Before that, what is a true fruit?
A true fruit. I remember an example where like an apple
Mhm.
being a false fruit.
Why is apple a false fruit? To me, it looks like a true fruit. In fact, it is one of the first thing that they tell us. Apple, strawberry, they are favorite of all our favorite fruits. Why are they false fruits?
So I said because those are formed from the ovary.
Exactly. So only the ripened ovary is called a true fruit. How to distinguish it? When you eat an apple, ovary contains ovules, right?
Yes, sir.
So when the wall of the ovary ripens, and what we are eating, the fleshy part, the pulp of the fruit, if it is the wall of the ripened ovary, then it is called a true fruit. So let's cut an apple. So apple looks something like this when we cut it, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
In that apple, the part you must have seen, if you cut an apple at your home, there is something like this at the center which we do not want to eat. And here are the seeds present in the apple, right? Inside this.
Yes, sir.
So we only eat this part, right?
Yes, sir.
And throw this part. Now, if I remove this part and only take this part, this is the ovary.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, which we don't eat because it does not get ripened. It is
Yes,
not
sir.
edible. It is not edible. It contains seeds, which means ovules.
Yes, sir.
But what we eat is everything around it, which is actually thalamus, not the ovary. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
So what we eat is this part, right?
Yes, sir. Okay.
This is called the thalamus tissue that got ripened instead of ovary. So for any fruit, if any other part gets ripened apart from the ovary, then it's called a false fruit. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Perfect. So, okay, cool. So anther, stamen, stigma, pistil, ovary, all these things are clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Embryo sac is one structure that can be asked in the exams to be drawn. Do you understand what is an embryo sac? Inside every ovary, there is embryo sac, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand what it is?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
So, what should I explain it right now?
Yeah, just a brief, like.
Yes, sir. So, its embryo sac consists of 7 cells, but it's 8 nuclei leading to the polar nuclei being 2 nucleus but 1 cell.
Perfect.
So then we have 8 nucleus over here, and
So it's
so
called
the
7-celled 8
8
nucleated
nucleus.
structure.
Yes, it undergoes from like 6 divisions from. So at the end, we have 7 cell 8 nucleate cell.
Yes. And what you said is the single cell but double nuclei is the central cell. The cells
Oh,
in the central cell.
okay.
Polar nuclei are the 2 nuclei which are present in central cell. Just to, yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Yeah, continue.
So the pollen tube enters to the filiform upper microphylla end. So the pollen tube fertilizes the egg cell, and then the cell are just the antipodal cells. They all provide nourishment for the embryo. So an undifferentiated, I mean, a differentiated embryo sac would have a plumule and radicle. So radicle will become the future root, and the plumule become the future shoot. The hilum is the junction of the embryo sac.
Perfect. And do you know what interesting thing about hilum? Hilum in a plant is a equivalent structure to what in humans?
It's the umbilical cord.
Perfect. Umbilical cord. Great. So you have these concept of pollination and all these things, types of pollination,
Yes, sir.
autogamy, xenogamy,
Yes, sir.
heterogamy, everything is clear to you, right?
I find yes, sir.
Yeah. And what is double fertilization?
So double fertilization is when we call two fertilizers occur at the same time. One of them is the triple fusion, and the
Mhm.
second one is when there's a male gamete fertilizes the egg cell to form a zygote followed by an embryo. So we call this double fertilization because both of them happen at the same time.
And why we call triple fusion as triple fusion?
If a triple fusion is because we had three things fusing together, which is a male
Three
nucleus.
nucleus. Don't say
Okay, three
things. Huh? Yeah.
three nucleus. So
Yeah.
one of them is a male nucleus, and the other two are the two polar nuclei, which forms an diploid endosperm.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So things are clear to you. So let's do one thing. Let's quickly go to some questions. Okay, I'm giving you 3 minutes, exactly 3 minutes to go over your notes if you want to do some final revision, and then I'll start with some questions. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Alan.
Yes, sir.
So I'll be here if you want to ask something. 3 minutes
sir.
for your own revision. Okay,
Yes, sir.
yeah, your time starts now. Okay, shall we begin, Alan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see the screen that I'm sharing with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with the first question. Tell me. Just read and can you read the question? Because just you and me, so it will be good if you read and then tell me the answer.
Yes, sir. Which one of the following statements is not correct? Offspring produced by asexual reproduction are called microsporic, motile asexual reproductive structure called zoospores. In potato, banana, and ginger, the plantlets arise from internodes present in the modified stem. Water hyacinth growing in stagnant water drains oxygen from water that leads to death of fishes.
Mhm.
So I think it's either option C or D. Is it C?
Yes, see, because see, all potato, banana, and ginger are not from stem. Ginger is a root, right?
Yes, sir.
So the internodes, sorry, they do not arise from internodes. Banana is stem, but does not arise from internet nodes. So that you have to just very fine mistake, which makes the statement incorrect. D is correct. Water hyacinth grows very, very fast in the standing water, and it covers the whole surface of the water body and takes all the oxygen out. And fish do not get any sunlight or oxygen, and then they die inside the water. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just some fact-based question. Question number 2, quickly.
Which one of the following generates new genetic combinations leading to variation? Vegetative reproduction, parthenogenesis, sexual reproduction, nuclear polyembryony. So option C.
Yes, option C. Nuclear. It's not nuclear. It's called
A nucellar polyembryony.
nucellar poly. That's it. Good. Question 6.
In origami, fertilization involves a small non-motile female gamete and large motile male gamete, a large non-motile female gamete and a small motile male gamete, large non-motile female gamete and a small non-motile male gamete, or large motile female gamete and a small non-motile male gamete. So that's option B, right?
Option B. So female gamete is non-motile. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Some people get confused. Then how does it move from the ovary to the fallopian tube? So you know the answer. It moves through the cilia-like appendage, cilia-like film. These structures present in the
Okay, yes, sir.
oviduct. So the ovum by itself cannot move. Sperms can move because they have a tail and they are small.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Also read question 7. Though this question is not asked these days, but you should just know it. Question 7. Can you understand it, or we will discuss something else?
So I'll just read it and see.
Yeah. It's not directly from NCERT. So there are less chances it will come now. But you should know.
So that's an option A.
It's option. It's not A. So it says that during regeneration, modification of an organ to other organ is known as. Remember, morphogenesis is formation of appearance of an organ. It is saying modification of an organ to another organ. So one organ is becoming another organ. That also happens sometimes. Most of the times in organisms that regenerate. For example, planaria. So planaria has organs inside its body, right? It's a multicellular organism. So suppose you cut the planaria where the planaria lost its eyes. Now some other organ has to form the eyes, right? There is no eye left to make another eye. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is called epimorphosis. Okay. Just remember that term. Write it down if you want. Epimorphosis is when one organ during regeneration modifies to form another organ. Question 8 can come though. Can you read question 8?
The process of series of changes from larva to adult after embryonic development is called metamorphosis.
Yes, perfect. So now I'll also take some from the flowering plants because we talked about this. Yes, question number 1. Let's start with this.
Functional megaspore in an angiosperm develops into a
Megaspore.
So I believe it's an embryo sac.
Perfect. It's an embryo sac. But if you have confusion, let me tell you a trick to remember. The word mega, spore means spore, like a gamete. The
Yes,
word,
sir.
if it was microspore, it means pollen. The word micro is always associated mostly with male gamete. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
in humans, the trick is instead of sperm, you can call it microgamete. So if I say microgamete, it is sperm. If I say megagamete, it is ovum. So if I say microspore, it is pollen. If I say megaspore, it is ovule or it is the embryo sac. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Because inside embryo sac is present inside the ovule.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's right. Option B, embryo sac. Okay. Can you write question 9? Question 9 is very famous question.
Yes, so the coconut water from tender coconut represents option B, free nuclear endosperm.
Yes, free nuclear endosperm. Okay. That's
Yes,
why
sir.
it is very, very nutritive. So this
Yes,
question
sir.
can also come in board as a 2 marker or 3 marker. That why patients who need energy or protein are asked to drink coconut water when they are recovering from an illness. Because coconut water contains triploid cells, which are free nuclear endosperm. So 3 times the 3 times the DNA means 3 times the protein synthesis.
Yes, sir.
Cells will have lots of protein. Okay, question 10.
Which one of the following statement is not true? So option D. Wait, yeah, no, hold on now. So it's option C, right?
Yes, it's option C. Tapetum helps in dehiscence of anther. No. Right? What helps in dehiscence of anther?
So it ruptures from the it ruptures due to the
Tegmentum.
sorry, sir.
The wall layers are called tegmen and tegmentum. Remember? Tapetum
Yes,
is
sir.
overall structure. Tapetum does not help in dehiscence. There is a layer called tegmentum that helps. Tapetum and tegmentum.
Okay, sir.
That helps in dehiscence. Yes. Rest are all are correct. A, B, and D are correct. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Exine is the outermost layer.
Of the pollen grain, yes, sir.
It is made up of sporopollen. Anything special you know about sporopollen? Remember?
Yes, sir. Sporopollen is like it's an organic material that's the most essential organic material known to withstand acidic and basic chemicals.
Organic polymer. Yes, you're right. Sporopollen is organic polymer which can withstand a lot of enzymes and biodegrading.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's why the
Yeah.
fossils are formed and
Exactly. And the inner layer is known as
intine.
intine. Okay. Cool. So if exine is made up of sporopollen, my question is, and if it is non-degradable, how does the pollen tube comes out?
Yes, so there are holes in the sporopollen for
Yes.
the pollen tube to grow out of.
Perfect. So at some places this exine has to be absent, otherwise nothing
sir.
can degrade it.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. Very good. Question 4 about pollination.
A dioecious flowering pan prevents both.
No.
So option A.
Yes. Perfect. So I think your concepts are very clear about dioecious flowering, right?
Yes,
What
yes,
is
sir.
what is dioecious means?
So
Monosexual or
dioecious,
bisexual?
it's monosexual.
Oh, perfect. And monoecious is bisexual,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes,
How
sir.
to remember that? Like you have remembered it, or do you need a trick?
No, sir, I remember that.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry. Question 11.
Seed formation without fertilization in flowering plants involves the process of
Yeah, sorry. Now I can see.
apomixis. Option B, apomixis.
Option B.
Apomixis.
Yes, perfect. It's called apomixis. Okay.
Okay, so
Now, can you tell me what is sporulation and budding?
budding is like for thing for Hydra, right?
Right. That's true. Somatic hybridization. Any idea about that?
Somatic hybridization, I think
Tissue culture. It's same.
Oh,
Similar. Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sporulation.
So I'm not sure about that one.
So remember I told you about fungi that make this spore formation. So there are these heads, bulbs at the head, which are called spore bags, spore sac.
Yes,
So they
sir.
make spore, okay, like rhizobium. Sorry, yes, rhizopus. The bread mold, the bread mold make structures which are filled with spores, and then it bursts and all the spores go into the atmosphere. And then wherever they fall, if they find the right environment, they will grow into a new. So that's called sporulation, formation of spores. Spores are not seeds. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question 6.
In majority of the angiosperms, so I said option B. I'm not sure about this one.
Okay, so it says in majority of angiosperms, like, so whenever this kind of question comes, sometimes the option will be confusing, almost all the time, because you might be thinking that egg also has a filiform apparatus. That's also correct. There are many antipodal cells. That's also correct. Reduction division occurs in the megaspore mother cell. That's also correct. But a small central cell is present in embryo sac. That's not correct. The central cell is the biggest cell, right?
Yes, sir.
So option D is incorrect, but A, B, C is confusing. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now look for the most important feature which has a functional advantage or which cannot be.
Okay, then
Yeah.
option C, right?
Perfect. That's how to tackle these questions. Egg has a filiform apparatus. If egg does not have a filiform apparatus, it's not the egg that has a egg cell does not have its own filiform apparatus. It is the filiform apparatus of the embryo sac. And if it does not have, sometimes it still can work. There are numerous antipodal cells. Yes, most of the time there are, but there can also be one. Okay, single, bigger one. So you can, even if, because these two things are not very, very vital, right? But if
Yes, sir.
reduction does not happens in the megaspore mother cell, there will be no formation of the embryo sac. Right?
Yes, sir.
So that you cannot mess with. So that's the idea. Okay, cool. Question number 12.
Which of the following statement is not correct? So I think it's option B.
Some reptiles have also been reported as pollinators in some plant species. No, that's correct. Snakes. Snakes also pollinate the biggest flower called Rafflesia.
Okay, then the only thing is option C, right?
Yes, option C is incorrect. Pollen grains of many species cannot germinate on the stigma of a flower. Okay. Because remember, when pollen falls on the stigma,
There's a chemical mediated dialogue.
yes, that's called pollen pistil interaction.
Interaction. Okay, yes, sir.
And that interaction is a chemical interaction where there are sugar molecules present. Sugar means not the sugar we eat, but carbohydrate molecules
There's a carb. Okay.
present at the surface of intine that first interacts with the stigma surface. And if these two molecules recognize because they are of the same species, then only the pollen tube growth is allowed inside the stigma. So that's how, because don't you think that normally in nature, all the trees are growing side by side? Suppose the pollen from a mango falls on the pistil of a guava. Now what is going to form? Nothing, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
how will the guava plant knows that this is not my pollen, so I should not let it germinate a pollen tube, so it should not go and fertilize with my egg cell. So this pollen pistil interaction is very important, a process that happens in plant. Plant look very simple, but they are, one of the most complex life forms on earth. You need to have something special in you so that you can flourish almost everywhere on the planet without moving, right? Yes or no? Don't you think that plants are much more advanced than animals because they cannot move, so they have to protect themselves, grow, flourish, reproduce, everything, but being still, anchored to the soil. So their mechanisms sometimes are more complex than animal mechanisms. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's option C. Perfect. One more question which I wanted you to. See, the same question came in a different way. Question number 17. Coconut water from a tender coconut is?
Yes, sir. Option D.
Option D. So language can change, but you understand.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question 26.
Glycanogamy involves. So option A.
A. Okay. Same plant. Different flower, but same plant. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's Jasola. Question number 20. That was a cancelled question, but it has come in a different language in later exams as well.
Which of the following are important floral rewards to animal pollinators? So option D.
Yeah. Right. So they can confuse you by asking that flowers that depends on entomophily for pollination produce. Do you understand? Entomophily means insect-based pollination. So if any plant depend on insect for its pollination, it should reward something to the insect, right? Why will insects come to the plant? So either there should be nectar, and with that nectar, there should be pollen grains.
Yes, sir.
The option A is also wrong because floral fragrance they produce. They also attract insects by floral fragrance. But with that, they will not produce calcium crystals, right?
Yes, sir.
If the option is floral fragrance and pollen grains, that's a correct option. Make sense?
Yes, sir. But a floral fragrance can't be said to be a floral reward, right? It's more of like for attracting the insect.
No, it is. It is like a reward to the insect because it cannot resist that smell. It has to be attracted. It goes and explodes.
Okay.
To think that it's a food. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So if nectar is not in the option, then floral fragrance has to have pollen grains with it and not calcium crystal. Okay. Just be thinking of, sometimes in options you do not get the most correct option, so you have to choose the least incorrect one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 21 again.
Which of the following may require pollinators for genetics similar to orthogamy? So glycanogamy.
Perfect. See, it is basically the same question that you
Yes,
just
sir.
solved
The
here,
other one.
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
26.
But can you see that the language is very, very different?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Doesn't
sir.
make a different question. The question is still testing the same concept of yours.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, perfect. So this is very simple. Function of filiform apparatus is to, you know that, guide the entry of
To
pollen.
guide the entry of pollen tube. Yes, sir.
Yeah, very simple question. Okay. Okay, question number 41, again through the same lines. I just want you to understand how many different ways are there to ask a question.
Yes, sir. It's option D.
Yeah. So sorry?
Option D, right?
No, it's not option D. Read the
No,
question.
which?
It is about the same concept, not specifically about getonogamy.
Okay, okay.
Which of the statement is correct?
Okay, so chiasmogametes do not open at all.
If, uh, mm, no. See,
Wait,
option D
wait,
says getonogamy involves the pollens and stigma of flowers
of
of different plants. Of course,
yes,
it's
sir,
wrong.
yes, that's wrong. So the option A.
Option A. Cleistogamous flowers are always autogamous because they are closed flowers, right?
Close. Okay,
The
yeah.
word cleast means a closed fist.
Okay.
Okay, like a shell.
Okay. Okay.
So if a flower is cleistogamous, if it cannot open to the outside environment, it has to be autogamous. The own stigma will always pollinate the own, the own anther will always pollinate the own stigma, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's only one way. So cleistogamous are always autogamous, okay? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Just testing the same concept, but in a different way.